The world stopped scrolling when the news hit. Lil Durk, the voice of the trenches, the symbol of street survival, had broken down in court. Not just a little tear, not a sniffle. We're talking a full emotional collapse in front of cameras, lawyers, and a room full of people who thought they'd seen it all. It was raw, shocking, and so unexpected that even his haters didn't know whether to celebrate or stay silent. The man who built his image on being unshakable suddenly looked human, and the internet didn't waste a single second turning his pain into content. They say every rapper has two lives, the one the world worships and the one they hide behind lyrics. In that courtroom, both of Durk's worlds collided like a car crash in slow motion. Witnesses said his voice cracked mid-sentence, his eyes glassed over, and then silence. No bars, no beats, just a man facing every mistake, rumor, and demon all at once. It was the kind of silence that screams louder than applause. And in a culture obsessed with strength, vulnerability hit like a bomb. Within minutes, that courtroom moment wasn't just a case, it was a trending topic. TikTok edits flooded the feed, looping Durk's shaky voice over piano instrumentals like it was the saddest movie ever made. Twitter turned it into a war zone. Half the timeline cried, "He's broken, y'all! He's tired!" While the other half sneered, "He's playing the victim again." Instagram pages did what they always do, turn trauma into traffic. Bloggers wrote captions longer than essays, pretending to pray for him, while secretly thanking the algorithm gods for another day of clicks. But the wild part? Nobody really knows what triggered it. Some say it was a verdict that hit too close. Others whisper about a confession, a leaked document, or a message that came from someone he thought was gone forever. Every rumor added fuel to the fire, and every fan had a theory. You'd think CNN was covering the apocalypse. The words Lil Durk and Breakdown dominated global trends faster than any single from his album. You could feel the shift. The same crowd that once called him a menace now called him misunderstood. The same internet that worshipped his coldness now dissected his pain like it was open surgery. The memes were merciless, but the sympathy was loud too. "He's been carrying too much," one comment read. "This industry don't love nobody," said another. And that's when it hit people. Maybe fame doesn't just build you up. Maybe it eats you alive, one courtroom at a time. Reporters claimed the judge paused proceedings. Lawyers went silent. Even the bailiff looked uncomfortable, like he'd just walked into something sacred. The courtroom air turned thick, heavy with years of trauma, betrayal, and the weight of everything Durk's music ever hinted at, but never fully said. That moment wasn't about guilt or innocence anymore. It was about a man who spent his whole career trying to outrun his past, finally realizing the past doesn't lose races. It waits. Outside, fans stood in crowds, phones up, waiting for updates. Some prayed. Others recorded themselves fake crying for TikTok clout. That's the world we live in. Tragedy gets monetized before the tears even dry. And Durk's collapse wasn't just news. It was a spectacle. Every gossip page, every industry insider, every wannabe journalist with a Wi-Fi signal suddenly became a therapist, legal expert, and spiritual advisor all at once. The irony? Lil Durk had warned us. His music had been crying for help long before his eyes did. Songs about losing friends, fighting demons, trusting no one. It was all there. We just didn't listen until the pain went viral. That's how fame works. Nobody cares when you rap about hurt. They care when they can watch it live, and that's exactly what happened. The same people who ignored his words replayed his breakdown on loop, slowing it down, analyzing every blink like it was a secret message. "Look at his eyes," someone said. "He's done." But maybe he wasn't done. Maybe he was finally being real. Because the truth is, the streets built Lil Durk's armor, but fame cracked it open. The courtroom didn't just humble him, it exposed him. The headlines were ruthless. Lil Durk cries in courtroom. Durk's emotional collapse caught on camera. The king of pain finally breaks. But none of them captured what really went down. Behind the viral clips, the snarky tweets, and the fake sympathy was something bigger. A man drowning in the spotlight he built, surrounded by people who only knew how to film, not feel. And the internet? Oh, it did what it does best. Laughed, speculated, and exaggerated. "He faking it for leniency," one comment read. "Nah, that's trauma," said another. But deep down, even the trolls knew this wasn't just another celebrity scandal. This was something darker, something real. The moment became a mirror, not just for Durk, but for everyone watching. The fans who cheer violence in songs but cry when it turns real. The industry that profits off pain but never pays the therapy bill. The influencers who preach mental health one minute and drag broken people the next. Lil Durk's breakdown wasn't just his. It was ours too, broadcast in high definition. And as the cameras kept rolling and the world kept talking, one thing became painfully clear. The courtroom didn't break Durk. The world did. All it took was one leak, one video, one moment of humanity, and the internet did what the streets never could, strip away every last layer of his invincibility. So yeah, Lil Durk broke down in court. But maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a breakdown. Maybe it was a breakthrough. The kind that reminds the world that behind the fame, behind the flexing, behind the legend of The Voice, there's still a man who bleeds when you push him too far. And if you thought the internet lost its mind today, wait till you see what happens when the truth finally comes out. It all started with a single headline, short, cold, and clinical. Lil Durk appears in court for emotional hearing. But in the age of clicks, that title was just the matchstick. Within hours, the story was everywhere, mutating into something bigger, bolder, and far more explosive. By the end of the day, emotional had turned into breakdown, appearance had turned into meltdown, and court, hearing had transformed into career-ending moment. It's the internet effect. One whisper becomes a roar, one tear becomes a tragedy, and when that roar reached social media, it was over. The courtroom was already tense before Durk even stepped in. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but trust the internet. Somehow, footage always leaks when fame is involved. A blurry clip appeared online, showing Durk seated beside his lawyer, head bowed, jaw tight, shoulders trembling. You couldn't hear the words, just the silence. That silence spoke volumes. Within seconds, fan pages had slowed it down, zoomed in, and edited it with sad piano music, like it was a Netflix docuseries. Lil Durk finally breaks, one caption read. Even the strongest crumble, said another. But the real storm didn't start until the details started leaking. Someone close to the situation, which, in gossip code, means an anonymous clout chaser with a cousin in security, claimed Durk heard something in court that shattered him completely. Some said it was news about his case. Others swore it was a name mentioned, a name tied to one of the friends he'd lost over the years, a ghost from OTF history that hit him harder than any verdict could. Whatever it was, that courtroom energy shifted instantly. One witness later told a blog, "You could feel it, like the air changed." He just froze. He looked like he wanted to speak but couldn't. Then his eyes started to water. He tried to hold it in, but it was like everything hit him at once. That quote alone broke the internet. People reposted it with crying emojis, dramatic edits, and captions like, "When real ones feel pain, it's different." Within an hour, "Pray for Durk" started trending. Of course, the trolls arrived right on cue. Some claimed it was all for show, he trying to soften the judge up. Others mocked him for cracking under pressure. But for every joke, there were 10 fans defending him. "Y'all love seeing black men cry just to clown them," one user wrote. "Let that man feel his pain," said another. The debate got so heated that even verified celebrities started chiming in. Meek Mill tweeted, "These courts break souls. Y'all don't understand how much they make us relive." Lil Baby posted a prayer hands emoji with the words, "Stay strong, twin." Even Drake threw in a cryptic post on his story, a black background with the words, "Even warriors need to breathe." Fans immediately linked it to Durk. Whether it was or not didn't matter. The narrative was sealed. Lil Durk was the wounded warrior of rap, fighting a silent war. Then came the leaks. Always the leaks. A mysterious Twitter account dropped what they claimed were inside quotes from Durk's lawyer. "He's been under immense emotional pressure," the post read. "This hearing brought back memories he's never dealt with." That single tweet got 3 million views before disappearing. Suspicious? Absolutely. Effective? Completely. By the next morning, YouTubers had turned it into a 10-minute exposé. Thumbnails screamed things like, "Lil Durk can't take it anymore, and this is why he broke down." Every gossip channel, every fake industry insider, and every wannabe journalist had their version of the truth. One even claimed he got news about King Von's case that triggered him. Another said he was betrayed by someone in his team. Nobody had proof, but proof is optional when the story sells itself. And somewhere in that chaos, the real Lil Durk, the man, not the meme, sat alone in silence. Sources said he refused interviews, ignored calls, and told his label he needed time. One person close to OTF allegedly told a blog, "He don't even want to record." He said he tired, like soul tired. That quote became gospel. Fans started posting old clips of Durk performing emotional verses, crying on stage, talking about loss. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just about a courtroom. It was about trauma, survival, and the human cost of fame. Every outlet tried to frame it their way. TMZ called it a breakdown. Complex said it was a moment of reckoning. XXL went poetic, calling it a man weighed down by the ghosts of his own lyrics. The blogs, of course, went wild with their own interpretations. One post read, "When street life meets real life, tears fall." Another wrote, "Durk's emotions prove no one is bulletproof, not even The Voice." And while the internet dissected his every move, the people who actually knew him said nothing. No tweets from India Royale, no comments from OTF members, just silence. That silence became louder than any statement could have been. Fans begged for answers. "We just want to know if he's okay," one wrote under every post. Others said, "Let him heal. Y'all don't own his pain." But in the algorithmic jungle of social media, healing doesn't trend. Heartbreak does. And Durk's moment of weakness became the biggest story in hip-hop overnight. He wasn't just a rapper anymore. He was a symbol of pressure, of exhaustion, of what happens when you carry the streets on your back for too long. The craziest part, this was just the beginning. Because before the internet could even process what happened inside that courtroom, another leak dropped. One that twisted the narrative even deeper, dragged more names into the mix, and turned a breakdown into a full-blown cultural moment. And once that hit the timeline, there was no turning back. The morning after the courtroom clip went viral, the internet woke up like it had witnessed a funeral for fame itself. Every blog, podcast, and T-page was on it, analyzing Durk's every breath, every twitch, every tear. The headlines were pure chaos. Lil Durk crumbles in court. Durk's emotional collapse leaves fans shocked. Judge stops trial after rapper breaks down. The exaggeration was so wild that even Fox News would have blushed. But nothing prepared fans for what came next. The leak that changed everything. A voice memo surfaced online, allegedly from someone inside the courtroom. You could hear muffled crying, a few whispered words, and what sounded like Durk's voice saying, "I'm tired of losing everybody." That one sentence turned into a cultural earthquake. Within minutes, it was reposted thousands of times, dissected like the Da Vinci Code. Fans were crying in comments. "He's crying for everyone he lost," one said. "That man been through hell," another wrote. Twitter became a therapy session mixed with a war zone. Some called it a moment of humanity in hip-hop. Others accused blogs of exploiting trauma. Then came the wave of think pieces. Because nothing goes viral without someone turning it into a deep social debate. One influencer wrote, "This shows how toxic masculinity forces black men to bottle emotions until they explode." Another countered, "Stop romanticizing pain. This man needs rest, not retweets." It was empathy and exploitation holding hands while the internet played therapist. Meanwhile, fans flooded his old music videos with emotional comments. "We didn't understand these lyrics till now. This song hits different knowing he broke down. He's been warning us." Views skyrocketed. Every song that mentioned pain, death, or loyalty climbed the charts again. The Voice was now being heard differently. Not as a rapper's persona, but as a cry for help hidden in 808s and reverb. And of course, where there's tragedy, there's opportunism. Fake insiders started crawling out like roaches after dark. One claimed Durk fainted in court, another said he threw his chain across the room. A third posted a completely fake mugshot with a caption that read, "This is the moment he realized it was over." People believed it. The line between fact and fiction blurred so hard it became entertainment. Celebrities began chiming in again, but this time it wasn't just pity, it was pressure. Boozy went live saying, "That man been through more than any of us. Y'all need to stop playing with him." 21 Savage tweeted, "You can't be The Voice if you never lose it." Even NBA YoungBoy fans jumped in. Not with empathy, but with memes. "Durk crying because the beef finally hit his soul," one post read. Petty? Absolutely. Viral. Instantly. The internet's duality was on full display. one half praying for healing, the other half dancing on his pain. But the story still wasn't over, because right when people thought it was all about emotions, court insiders dropped a bombshell. Apparently, something had been read aloud during the hearing that caught Durk completely off guard. A name tied to a cold case, an old betrayal, or something he'd buried deep. Nobody knew for sure, but speculation was gasoline. Was it Von? One tweet asked. Was it someone from OTF? Did somebody flip? Theories multiplied faster than Spotify streams. And then came the memes, thousands of them. Durk's teary courtroom face photoshopped onto movie posters, album covers, even Bible verses. Lil Durk, the Book of Tears. When the voice finally goes mute, the internet couldn't decide whether to cry or laugh, so it did both. Meanwhile, YouTubers dropped exclusive videos every hour, thumbnail faces gasping, red circles pointing at random court documents. This is why Durk lost it, you won't believe number 4. But through all the noise, something real started happening. Other artists, even the hard ones, started speaking up. Rod Wave said in a live, "I felt that pain. We all one bad day away from that moment." G Herbo posted a broken heart emoji with no caption. And the fans? They started sharing their own stories, losing friends, dealing with grief, masking emotions. The conversation had turned from gossip to therapy without anyone realizing it. Then out of nowhere, Durk's label released a statement, short, vague, and corporate. Durk is focusing on his mental health and appreciates the outpouring of support from fans. But it was too late for control. The story had grown wings. The label couldn't PR this away. People weren't just talking about his music anymore. They were talking about him. The human, the broken man behind the legend. Blogs started comparing it to Kanye's breakdown, DMX's confessions, even Tupac's trial. History repeats, one article read. Every generation gets its martyr. It was dramatic, exaggerated, and completely on brand for the internet. But beneath the sensationalism, something stuck. For once, hip-hop's vulnerability was trending, not its violence. And as the conversation exploded, so did the divide. Some fans swore this was the wake-up call the industry needed. Others rolled their eyes, saying he'd be back dropping disses next month. But deep down, even the cynics could feel it. Something had shifted, because behind the tweets, the think pieces, and the fake sympathy, people saw something they weren't used to seeing from Lil Durk. Surrender, not defeat, not weakness. Just a moment where the armor cracked, and the man inside finally exhaled. Still, if you think the internet was going to let him breathe, you don't know the internet. The next twist in this story was already brewing. A shocking move that would flip the narrative again, turn Durk's breakdown into a statement, and remind everyone that even when he's down, the voice still knows how to make the world listen. The court wasn't finished, the fans weren't done. And Lil Durk? He was about to turn his pain into the most viral silence the rap game had ever seen. By the third day, the world had stopped calling it a court hearing and started calling it the Durk breakdown. The clip had been reposted on every continent, translated into subtitles, and remixed into everything from TikTok edits to trap soul instrumentals. It wasn't just a moment anymore, it had become a movement. People who'd never listened to a single Lil Durk song were suddenly acting like they'd grown up on OTF. They quoted his lyrics like gospel, dissected his pain like prophecy, and crowned him the new face of hip-hop vulnerability. Meanwhile, the court saga kept twisting. Reports surfaced that Durk had requested a private session with the judge, citing personal matters. Nobody knew what that meant, but the blogs had a field day. "Durk reveals hidden truths in private meeting," one headline screamed. "He's naming names," another insisted. But when court adjourned that day, his lawyer only said 4 words to reporters. "He's taking time off." That was enough to send social media into meltdown mode again. The phrase, "time off," hit fans like a warning shot. Was he retiring? Was he sick? Was this the end of the voice? Twitter spaces turned into group therapy. Fans debated like scholars. If Durk steps away, who's left to speak for the trenches? One asked. Another answered, maybe that's the point. Maybe he's tired of speaking for pain that don't ever heal. But behind all the digital hysteria, something quieter was happening. A photo surfaced. Not from the court, not from paparazzi, but from a fan outside. It showed Durk walking out of the building, hoodie up, eyes red, holding hands with his daughter. No entourage, no cameras, no fake smiles. Just a man walking home. That single photo softened even the hardest hearts online. For a moment, the jokes stopped. The trolls got quiet. The world remembered that the man behind the mic was still human. Of course, that peace didn't last long. The industry vultures saw an opportunity. "Exclusive Durk interview coming soon," teased one blog. Another posted, "Lil Durk's emotional return to music confirmed." Every time his name appeared, clicks followed like hungry wolves, but Durk stayed silent. No statements, no music, no tweets. For once, the voice had nothing to say, and that silence echoed louder than any record he'd ever dropped. Then, on a random Friday night, the silence broke. Out of nowhere, Durk's YouTube channel uploaded a new video titled "Goodbye." No promo, no teasers, just one word and a black thumbnail. Within 10 minutes, it had 500,000 views. The video opened with courtroom footage, the same moment everyone had been obsessing over. But this time, it was raw, unedited, paired with Durk's voice narrating over it. He spoke slowly, like every word cost him something. "Y'all saw the tears, y'all saw the pain, but y'all ain't see what came before it. All the losses, all the nights I couldn't sleep, all the faces that don't answer the phone no more." The internet froze. No beat, no ad-libs, just truth. "They call me the voice, but lately I've been tired of talking. Sometimes the streets don't hear you till you cry." The comment section filled faster than bots could keep up. "Realest thing I've ever heard. This hit harder than any song. This man not rapping anymore, he preaching." In less than 24 hours, the video hit 20 million views. And for the first time in his career, Durk didn't trend for controversy. He trended for clarity. Blogs and news outlets tried to twist it into another headline, but they couldn't. This wasn't drama. It was therapy broadcasted to millions. Even his biggest rivals stayed silent out of respect. Blue checkmarks everywhere reposted clips with captions like, "This is what growth looks like." Fans even started a hashtag, "We hear you, Durk." But while the world praised his comeback, Durk wasn't chasing applause. He was disappearing. No interviews, no public appearances. He skipped award shows, cancelled appearances, and stopped taking label calls. The man who once ruled the charts walked away like a ghost who'd finally found peace. "He don't want fame no more," an OTF insider allegedly said. "He just want to live." And that was the real plot twist. Lil Durk didn't fall off. He walked off. On his terms. No scandals, no disses, no beef. Just silence. And that silence turned into legend. Memes turned into memorials. Playlists renamed his songs Durk's Diary. People who used to clown him started quoting him like scripture. Months later, when fans least expected it, a billboard popped up in Chicago. Black background, white letters, no logo. Just a message that read, "Pain doesn't define me, purpose does." The voice. The city stopped. Photos went viral. People started driving past it just to take pictures. It wasn't an album rollout. It wasn't a promo. It was closure. And maybe that's what he'd been searching for the whole time. Not freedom from court cases or headlines, but freedom from the weight of being the voice for everyone but himself. The breakdown wasn't an ending, it was a rebirth. By the time the internet realized it, Durk had already disappeared from the noise. No lives, no features, no controversies, just quiet. The same quiet that once scared him now protected him. And that's the real twist nobody saw coming. The strongest man in the game didn't fight back. He simply let go. Because sometimes, breaking down isn't falling apart. It's finally putting the pieces where they belong. And there you have it. The story they didn't want you to see. The truth buried beneath 1,000 memes and headlines. They showed you a man crying in court, but they never told you why those tears meant more than a verdict. They looped the clip, turned it into a hashtag, and made it entertainment. But for Lil Durk, that moment wasn't content, it was confession. It was the first time The Voice stopped rapping for the world and started speaking for himself. Because behind every viral breakdown, there's a lifetime of bottled up pain. Behind every courtroom flashbulb, there's a childhood that never healed. Behind every lyric about loyalty, there's a grave, a ghost, and a sleepless night. And Lil Durk carried all of that like it was part of his brand, until the weight finally broke him down. But that breakdown, it wasn't weakness, it was freedom in disguise. The same world that laughed at his fall will one day quote his recovery. See, that's the cycle of fame. They build you up for views, then tear you down for clicks, then pretend to pray for you while hitting refresh on your downfall. But what they didn't expect this time was for Durk to flip the script. Instead of turning his pain into a diss track, he turned it into peace. Instead of chasing the charts, he chose silence. And that silence is louder than any beat he ever rapped on. And that's why this story matters. Because it's not just about Durk, it's about every person who ever tried to stay strong until strong stopped working. Every fan who lost people and pretended they were fine. Every man who smiled through trauma because he thought emotions made him weak. What you saw in that courtroom wasn't a fall from grace. It was grace